Hello everyone and welcome back to the Coding Amateur. In this video we will focus on our data model within the Directus Data Studio. To understand how the Directus Data Studio works, I have a simple diagram. The Directus Data Studio sits on top of a PostgreSQL database. When we create a collection in the Data Studio, it creates a data table in the database. Fields inside of a collection represents the columns in the data table. So this is what we will be creating in the Data Studio. Once this is set up, we can then populate our columns with the necessary data. I have prepared a simple data model that we can use. We will create a fictitious restaurant. And we will, for that restaurant, we want to have an online menu. So customers could come online and see what the restaurant has to offer. So we will first have to decide what information do we want the customers for our restaurant to see. So if it's an online menu, for each menu item, we want an ID. Secondly, we want a name. We could have Alfredo pasta or cheeseburger. And then we want to have a brief, a description of the menu item. And lastly, a price, which would inform the customer how much they would have to pay for that item. Alongside the different fields we will create, we have the type of data it will be. So the ID will be a string, name will be a string, the brief is also a string, and the price will be a decimal. So I think that's simple enough to get started. So let's log into our data studio. All right. And let's create our collection. So we will create our collection and we have to give it a unique name. So we will name it menu item. Now we have here singleton. To explain that simply as I can, if we are creating a data model that is only going to have one entry, in other words, we do not have multiple data items, then we could use singleton. But if we are going to have multiple data items, then we would not select that. What do I mean by data item? For instance, if we are creating, let's say, a field to store the name of the restaurant would only have one name. So in that case, it would be a singleton. But for this, because it's a menu item, we will have multiple menu items. So we'd have many data entries. And so we would not use singleton. I hope that is clear enough. All right. In terms of type, we want this to be a generated UUID, which is a unique identifier. So, and this will be automatically generated. We would not have to generate that. And the primary key field is an ID. So we have optional fields, which is status, and I'm going to select all, sort, created on. This is the date that you would create. So when you start adding data to the Directus Studio, every data item you create, the date it was created on will be saved. The user that was logged in when the data was created will also be saved. If we update that data, that date will also be saved, and who updated it, that will also be saved. So we will save. Finish setup. And we have created our collection. So as I said, a collection in the Data Studio represents a data table within the database. So we have a data table and its name, it would be named menu item. And we have a few columns already created here. Now we need to create the columns or fields that we need for our data. So we already have an ID field, so we will not create that, but we need a name, a brief, a string, and a price. And I forgot one field that we need, which is an image. All right, and that's very important. We need an image for our menu so the customer could see how it looks. All right, so let's get cracking. So the first thing we will create is a name field, but for our simple project, we will want to start with an input field, and this is just going to take a simple text, which is a name. So if we click the input field, we are going to use name, and it's going to be of type string, and this is what we want to see within the data studio. So we're going to put name in caps. So what I practice is when given the key, I would use lowercase characters, and when I'm creating a placeholder, I would start with a capital letter and use lowercase for the rest. All right, that's just the convention I use. It may be the better or proper convention, but you can decide. All right, so with that done, I'm going to click save. Once I have saved it, we have a name field. All right, so if we come back to our model, we need a brief. So let's create our brief. So for our brief, we have the text area, and we have what is known as a WYSIWYG editor. Now for our brief, we don't need to manipulate our text much. So we would not need italics or any special characters or anything like that. So we would not use the WYSIWYG editor, and that stands so what you see is what you get, WYSIWYG. Right, so we will not be using that. If we had a more complex project and we needed more functionality within our text, then we could use the WYSIWYG. For a simple description or brief of the menu, we will just use the text area. All right, and we will give it a unique key, and we'll just do brief, and it's going to be text automatically. Placeholder, we will just again BRIF brief. We could set soft limits, font type, but for now, we will not look at that. We just want to keep it simple to get an understanding of creating a collection and the fields within a collection. So let's just click save. All right, so we have the name, we have the brief, we need an image. So let's click on create field again. And we will this time go to the file. Now you may be tempted to use the image field, but for our image we will use the file. And what that allows us to do is just upload and save our image as a file, which we can then pull from the back end to be consumed by the front end. And this is more efficient than, in my opinion, than using the image field. So let's click on file, and we will name this image. And you'll notice that the folder it will be saved in is the file library root. All right, and that's the only folder we have. And let's click save. All right, so we have our image. And let's see, lastly, we need a price. So let's go now to input. This time we want, now a price could normally have a point. So something could cost $20.50, which would be a decimal. So we would want to choose decimal. All right. And we would, for this, we would put price, and for placeholder price. Now, because it is a decimal, we are going to have to do something a little different here, and I will show you. Now, you notice although you're seeing 10 and 5, these are actually just examples. It's like a placeholder. The 10 and 5 are like placeholders. So, for instance, if let's say we wanted to have the largest value for our price, for a menu again, let's say $1,000.70. 1,000 would be 4 digits, and the 75 cents would be 2 digits, which means it would be 6 digits in all. So the total amount of digits that your price could have, including the digits after the point, we put that number here. So for this example, we would not have anything more than $100, and we could determine that at this stage. Of course, depending on your project, you could create larger numbers if you want. So because we would not be creating anything more than $100 before the point and 2 digits after the point, that would be 5 digits in all. I hope that makes sense. So let's say $100.75. That would be 5 digits in all. So we would put 5 here. In this second column, we would tell the Directus Studio how many digits of the 5 we want after the point. We will put 2. So we'll have 3 digits before the point and 2 digits after the point. So the total amount of digits would be 5, and the total out of the 5, the total amount of digits you want after the point would be 2. Right? Once we do that, we can click Save. And we have everything we need to start putting in our data. So let's do some tidying up to make our data studio look nicely. So our name, we could put that to half width. So let's come here and make it half width. Our price could also be half width, and we could drag our price next to our name. So to make it look nice, right? Our brief could take up entire line, and our image, I think we could make our image a half width, and let's put that here, right? So I think we should be good for now, and that auto saves. And if we go back, we will see menu item in our data model. So if we go to content, we will see our menu item here. So in content, we will see menu item, and we click create item, and we see here the fields which we can populate with the data that we want. So I will start populating the data, and we can, this is the status of our data that we are entering. So if we put it as draft, it would not be available to be consumed by the front end. But if we put it as publish, it means that the data is available. So it could be that you are creating an item and you don't want to make it public as yet. You can leave it in draft. Someone may need to come and edit it. And when it is finally finished, then you could publish it and it would be available. So you have that option here, or you could archive it. It may be you may have an item that is no longer available to the public. You don't want to delete it, but you want to archive it. You can do that. We want to put it as publish, and we want to get some names of some item. So I will get some names and some photos of some menu items, and I will populate them, and we will walk through it together. Alright, so let's start populating our data fields. So let's start with our name, and so we have a couple of items we can do. So let's start with our name. We're going to have a pasta supreme, and we will charge $5.95 for that. And we want to upload from device, so we want to choose a device. So let's look for our so let's go kind, and let's do tutorials, and let's write. So this is our pasta supreme, and let's open, and we have our pasta supreme, and we're going to publish it one time. So brief, what can we see? And we just need something brief. This, is a very tasty meal, a lovely dinner option. All right, this is a very tasty meal, a lovely dinner option, and let's save. Okay, so looking at how the data is displayed, it's not in the best format. So we want to rearrange it so that it makes sense to us. Now, if we look at image, we see here a number. This is actually the name generated for our image. But what we can do is actually add a thumbnail instead of this image here. We can also add the ID here. So this plus, which is add field, we want to add the ID. And what we can do is put our mouse over it and then drag the ID field to the extreme left. And we can shrink the ID field right. Shrink the ID field. Next is the image. So for our image, we want to remove the image field. So just click on this little arrow here, and we want to hide field. We want to click the add field again, and if we scroll down on the image, we will see an arrow. Let's click that arrow, and it drops down, and we will look for a thumbnail, which is here, and bingo, we have a thumbnail. So let's slide the thumbnail. Right, so we have our ID, our thumbnail, our name, our price, and I like to put the status to the extreme left, just in front of the ID. And we don't need to see the name status, but once we see a purple dot, we know it's published. So we have an ID, we have our ID, we have our thumbnail, we have our name, we have the price. And we can always show who created it. So user created, and that would be the admin user. Right? So the admin user would be the one who created that. Alright, and that's our data. Right? This is our data. So let's create some more. So I will create one more item, and then I will populate the rest off screen, and I will come back on screen after. So let's create one more item. So let's publish this. And again, you don't have to publish it immediately, but for this project, it's simple. So I'm just going to publish it. So we will have a cheese burger surprise. And let's give that $4.99. Let's look for an image, upload from device, and let's grab our cheeseburger and great option for hanging out with friends. Very delicious and satisfying. That's it. Oops, satisfying. Alright, that's better. Okay, great option for hanging out with friends. Very delicious and satisfying. Okay, so we have all the fields entered it. Let's save that. And we have our cheeseburger. Right. Now a field we can add is date created. That would be a nice date created. Right. So that's it. So that's how we add data to our data model. So I will go off screen and I will add the rest of the menu items. So now that I've added all of the other menu items, I will log back into my data studio. As you would have noticed, I have modified my backend so it looks a little more unique. You know, I have customized it to meet my specific needs, and you can do the same too. To understand how to customize your instance of the Directus Data Studio, I have put a link in the description where it would show you how to customize your data studio. Right? So let me log in and let's get back to our online menu. And if we go to content, you will see that I have populated my data model with the different items. So I have pasta, cheeseburger surprise, veggie line. For desserts, I have cupcakes, coconut vanilla ice cream, orange juice, grapefruit juice. All right. So that was just a simple way, and this project is very simple so that you get a basic understanding of how to enter data into the Directus Data Studio. As we progress further, I will show you how to manipulate this data if you need to add an extra field or you need to modify one of the fields. We will look at how to do so. But we have a simple data model, and we have already populated our fields, and we have our menu items. The next step would be to prepare the front end to consume the data that we have in the back end. To do that, we will then use our React router framework, which is the front end, and we will connect the front end to the back end, and we will look at doing that in the next video.